There is more to Donald Trump's comeback to the White House than merely revitalizing his political legacy. It is drawing attention to his youngest son. We are discussing Barron Trump. Barron Trump was little more than a shadow behind the scenes for years. Quiet, motionless, and seldom observed. But in an instant, everything was different. The youngest Trump shocked the political world by speaking without saying a word. Known for their strict control over the media and their extreme solitude, Donald and Melania Trump were clearly startled and moved to tears by their son's change. Where is Barron now? Why now? What does his abrupt appearance portend for the future of the Trump family? We learn what actually transpired behind the scenes today, and why Barron Trump might be the most potent wildcard the dynasty has ever created. The nation was startled by the moment. As the world's cameras focused on Donald Trump's historic comeback to the presidency on January 20, 2025, something very else took center stage. Barron Trump took center stage for the first time in almost 20 years, as a calm, tall young man who demanded attention without uttering a word, rather than as a passive political accessory. He did not raise a flag, make a prepared speech, or grin. He just stood behind his dad. Nevertheless, Barron was the one who made a lasting effect. Within minutes, the internet was up and running. Speculators rushed to explain what they had just seen. It was dubbed the soft launch of a dynasty extension by political analysts. Others referred to him as the Trumpism quiet prince. The shift was not merely physical, but it was hard to miss. One of the most popular tweets simply said, "That's not the same kid from 2017, that's a presence." Even though his father is not a short man, Barron now towered above him at an estimated 6. Barron was a man of quiet power, dressed in a sharp dark blue tailored suit, his hair slicked back, and his shoes polished. The youngster who shifted restlessly behind his parents during rallies was no more. He was replaced by a young man whose body language spoke volumes. But his height and style weren't the only things that shocked the globe. It was the way he was. With the serene assurance of someone who knew exactly where he was and what it meant, he stood. He didn't try to please the crowd. Ironically, that distance only added to his charm. Next came the moment that even his parents were taken aback by. Barron made a little but clear gesture as Donald Trump turned to speak to the applauding throng. In an attempt to get more applause, he lifted one hand, cupped it to his ear, and leaned slightly in the direction of the audience. It was lighthearted, surprising, and instantly recognizable. It felt oddly earned coming from Barron, a gesture that would have been clumsy or arrogant from anybody else. He seemed to have been getting ready for this moment the entire time. Donald, who always puts on a wonderful show, laughed heartily at the tale and remarked, "Even he has to look up at his own son." However, to those who were paying close attention, something else briefly appeared on that uncommon face of the former president, who seemed momentarily humbled by what he was witnessing. The emergence of an entirely new kind of power. Melania calmed herself, as she always did, like a light blue coat. Because it was only when Barron was standing up behind his father that he noticed her dabbing at the corner of his eye. It would have been highly unusual for a calm person in a field where self-control is a virtue. For a split second, it was about a mother celebrating her only child's achievement of securing his position on the global scene, not politics. The images and videos from that moment went viral in the first few hours. Cyberspace was taken over with the hashtag #BarronTrump. But the best response was never from reporters or fans, but rather from being silent. There were no interviews or follow-up plans, just him going back to his shell and leaving everyone to wonder if it was his debut or his farewell. For the first time, he was in the spotlight. However, this change took time to occur. It took years to develop. Additionally, it began in private. Melania's aggressive defense strategy. The public witnessed the Trump family's power dynamics unfold in front of the world for years. Ivanka spoke. Donald Jr. traveled on the campaign trail. Eric threw himself into the company. However, one name continued to be out of reach, out of sound bites, and out of headlines: Barron Trump. And it wasn't a coincidence. It was the outcome of a meticulously planned approach, created by Melania Trump alone. In addition to being Barron's parent, Melania shielded him like a stronghold. Since his birth in 2006, she has kept him out of the spotlight and away from tabloids and media appearances. Barron was kept well away from the spotlight, unlike his half-siblings who loved it from an early age. Although he was not homeschooled in the conventional sense, he had a very quiet life influenced by prestigious private tutors, who were chosen for their confidentiality and dependability, in addition to their academic prowess. In Trump Tower, he had the whole floor to himself. In every way, his early years were protected from the turmoil of politics. Melania did the exact opposite of most political families, who exploited their children to enhance their public persona. She was determined to keep her youngster apart from the maelstrom of her husband's aspirations. She reportedly turned down several requests for Barron to make more public appearances, even though doing so could have improved Donald Trump's reputation. Building a brand wasn't Melania's vision for Barron's future. Character development was the goal. Barron was taught discipline and diplomacy in place of campaign speeches and photo ops. Melania prioritized building long-term resilience over immediate fame. Speaking Slovene fluently from an early age, Barron also received public speaking instruction, studied French, and was exposed to world history rather than political propaganda. There was no coaching for TV appearances or grooming for the office. After Trump won the 2016 election, Melania once postponed her own First Lady duties to spend several months with him in New York, arguing that he needed to complete his academic year. Although it appeared to be a small logistical setback to many, it transmitted a symbolic message. Barron refused to be forced into a political story that did not fit his own. Years later, in an appearance with Fox News, she made her most significant revelation. Melania responded, "I raised Barron as his own person and gave him his own yes and no's. There was no pressure to follow the Trump path, no expectation of performance." When asked about Barron's future and his choice to live independently while attending NYU, Melania made it clear that her son would be the exception in a world where legacy is frequently viewed as fate. But even the strongest barriers allow light to seep through. Over the years, glimpses of Barron's change emerged. He appeared taller, more confident, and had a sharper gaze. His name would occasionally surface in campaign rumors or tech circles, usually in relation to digital tactics. The rumor that he was involved in the social media strategies that helped Donald Trump reach younger voters during the 2024 campaign was unsubstantiated, but it would have taken intelligence, trust, and preparation, which raises the question of whether Melania was secretly preparing Barron for the world while shielding him from it. However, even with a mother's protection, Barron was never completely hidden. Quiet clues over the years indicated that he wasn't simply maturing, rather, he was getting ready for something. Barron Trump's covert development. Although his appearance at the 2025 inauguration may have taken the world by surprise, the change had been taking place covertly for years, behind the palace walls, beneath the headlines, and within a very contemporary upbringing that set him apart from his siblings. His fascination with technology began at a young age, with Barron reportedly spending hours exploring software design, coding environments, and immersive digital worlds. While his siblings managed corporate holdings and made media appearances, Barron was more interested in algorithms than advertising deals, and the public argued whether he was shy, rebellious, or just not interested in the spotlight. Although he wasn't the face of the movement, Barron was a quiet operator who maximized reach, hashtags, and viral momentum throughout his father's 2024 campaign, according to sources. And he played an unexpected role by helping create digital techniques that appealed to younger people. According to people close to the family, Melania not only encouraged this passion, but also welcomed it as a component of Barron's emotional and intellectual development. Outside of the digital world, Barron also discovered a surprising outlet in music, where drumming became more than just a pastime. It was his voice in a world where he rarely spoke in public. It was the shaping of a different kind of air, one molded less by corporate expectations and more by technological curiosity. Even tech elites took notice, as Barron was enmeshed in rhythm, code, and creative independence. While Donald Trump's legacy was often centered on business deals and high-stakes negotiations, Elon Musk reportedly met with Barron and discussed topics ranging from consciousness to artificial intelligence and gaming design. When it came time for college, Barron's decisions spoke as loudly as his silence. He enrolled at NYU's Stern School of Business, a reputable institution, but he rejected the performative trappings typically associated with elite presidential children. Although no official partnerships or projects were ever confirmed, the interaction alone was enough to raise questions. Was Barron being prepared to lead in a completely different space, one beyond politics and legacy media? It wasn't just a step toward adulthood, it was a declaration of personal agency. Instead of living in a dorm and assimilating into student life, Barron opted to live independently in a private home, with Secret Service remaining discreetly close by. But his daily routine was described as quiet, structured, and self-determined. When Barron was spotted on campus wearing casual polos, beige chinos, and a tousled, uncombed hairstyle, He was redefining his image, abandoning the carefully manicured look of a first family member, and adopting something more relaxed and approachable. Even his appearance started to change, moving away from the fitted suits and tightly styled hair that were common at public events. In a world where volume is often equated with value, Barron's silence has only increased the intrigue surrounding him. His height alone, estimated to be around 6, made him instantly recognizable. But his demeanor remained low-key, and his interactions with peers were reportedly limited. He wasn't campaigning, networking, or just living. Even though he hasn't made public appearances, started projects, or assumed political roles, people are still curious about what will happen next, particularly after Donald and Melania, the two people who knew him the best, finally spoke up. His identity was quietly developing in the background, leaving everyone wondering. But then, for very different reasons, his parents finally spoke up. Donald and Melania Trump speak out. Barron. Trump's parents said very little about him in public for the majority of his life. In fact, part of his mystique came from the fact that he was never spoken for, only watched from a distance. However, in the months after Donald Trump's inauguration in 2025 and Barron's quiet but impactful debut, that changed. Melania Trump, who has always been fiercely private, especially when it comes to her only son, opened up in a way few expected in her 2024 self-titled memoir, saying that Barron possesses a rare combination of intelligence, charm, and diligence, and that he had remained resolute in his character and values, even as their family was engulfed in controversy and political battles. This was the first time that Donald and Melania broke their long silence, and their words may have said more than they intended. Melania elaborated on her parenting style in a Fox News interview shortly after the memoir's publication, saying, "I respected Barron's decision to attend NYU and live independently. It was not just motherly pride, but a clear declaration that Barron had survived the storm without losing himself." Then came a statement that took the audience by surprise. Melania paused before responding. "I could not say I'm an empty nester," after emphasizing that she had always let Barron make his own decisions and choose his own path. Her tone was proud but reserved, as if she had learned to let go. It was a cryptic response that raised more questions than it did answers. Was she implying that Barron was still emotionally close to her, or was it a subtle reference to their changing relationship, or perhaps even a hint of sadness at seeing her once protected son grow up and leave her close supervision? Never one for subtlety, Donald Trump provided a more lighthearted, but no less illuminating look into their son's life, when he described trying to turn off Barron's laptop. In an interview with Laura Ingraham, "I turn off his laptop, and 5 minutes later, it's back on. He worked it out. He's incredible," Trump chuckled. It was one of the few times Donald Trump publicly praised someone else's strategic mind, and it was significant for a man who tends to center the narrative on himself to give his son that kind of credit, especially in the area of digital warfare. He also acknowledged Barron's contribution to his campaign's digital outreach, saying his son had an unbelievable aptitude in technology and knew exactly how to reach younger voters online. Even so, both parents seemed to go out of their way to portray Barron as independent, his own man, not a copy of his father or an extension of his mother's values. Their remarks were not laden with political expectation or dynastic pressure. Rather, they felt like cautious acknowledgments of a young man who might not follow their path at all. It wasn't just praise, it was recognition, perhaps even a passing of the torch. In a family characterized by controversy, sound bites, and constant media attention, Barron Trump stands out as a stark contrast. The world sees a young man coming into his own, but what comes next for Barron Trump could challenge everything we thought we knew about the Trump dynasty. The emotional undertone was clear, pride mixed with distance. His silence doesn't indicate weakness, it's his signature. Now, observers are asking a question that used to seem ridiculous. Could Barron Trump be the one to reshape the Trump legacy? He has no scandals, lawsuits, bankruptcies, or tweets that sparked national outrage. He is the quietest Trump, but he has the potential to be the most powerful in a new way. For strategists and image makers, Barron is what they refer to as an empty canvas, someone whose brand can be shaped in any direction without the need to justify past mistakes. At just 19, he carries a last name loaded with history and baggage, but he is unaffected by its controversies, making him something extremely rare in the political sense, and that is leverage in politics. However, what is even more unusual about Barron's presence is that he appears completely uninterested in using that leverage for fame. He doesn't attract attention, doesn't go to ostentatious events, and doesn't participate in a public spectacle. Whereas his father strode into rooms and made headlines, Barron quietly drifts behind the scenes. Barron chose college, coding, and composition, while his half-siblings joined their father on stage and in campaign offices. But his mystique is growing despite, or maybe because of the fact that some political insiders call him the post-Trump Trump. Not because he intends to run for office, but rather because he represents a new kind of influence that is strategic, quiet, and detached. His influence stems from the fact that he is the Trump that no one can fully understand. And in today's media-rich world, mystery is alluring. Even media veterans acknowledge that they have never witnessed anything like it. Major outlets follow his college sightings, his fashion changes, and even his relationships. Barron doesn't need a podium to influence the conversation, or a press release to move an audience. He has never been given an interview. He has never publicly stated his views on politics, economics, or policy, and his social media presence is essentially non-existent. Nevertheless, Barron Trump makes waves whenever he even enters a room. It is uncommon and potent to garner attention through restraint rather than noise. On the other hand, perhaps Barron is simply growing up in unique circumstances, creating a private life like millions of other 19-year-olds do, but with a last name that won't let him fade away. Perhaps his silence isn't even calculated. Perhaps he doesn't want the legacy, the attention, or the responsibility. And then there's the issue of internal influence. Donald and Melania have both acknowledged Barron's intelligence and input, and his role in 2024's digital campaign strategies, while subtle, suggests the kind of behind-the-scenes influence he may already possess. The answer may lie not in what Barron Trump says, but in what he doesn't say. Influence that doesn't require a title or a public office. So where does that leave us? Is Barron Trump supposed to carry the Trump name into a new era, more sophisticated, more digital, more strategic? Or is he quietly rejecting it all, creating a legacy outside of politics? Is Barron Trump the next chapter in the Trump legacy, or its last punctuation mark? Will he quietly create his own world or shape the next chapter of political influence? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Barron Trump may have gained notoriety with a single unexpected gesture, but what followed was something much more potent, a quiet revolution within one of America's most divisive families. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen right now for more unique insights into strong facts that public leaders conceal.